got qualified for EB1. And I think that was one of the most asked questions in the forum, like how I got or how I got qualified for this particular visa. So before I start, you can connect with me on two platforms. One is my YouTube channel, which I have named as Meet Praneet, and the other is my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to connect me on either of the platforms, and I'll be very happy to chat with you and help you discover how you can qualify for EB1. So with that, let's start. So the very first question comes to our mind is, what is a green card? And I think most of you know about it, but just to put it out, green card is a permanent resident card which allows you to stay in the United States for like indefinitely or permanently. And currently, statistics-wise, I think with 2019 statistics, there are 14 million green card holders. And out of that, 9 million are now eligible for citizenship. And approximately 65,000 people also which are on green cards serve in United States Armed Forces. So now comes to the main topic, which is EB1 Green Card. What is this EB1 and why there's so much hype about EB1, right? So EB1 is an first preference extraordinary ability green card, and it's awarded to individuals who demonstrate extraordinary ability in sciences, arts, education, business, and athletics. And this can be, you can qualify for this either through sustained national or international claim. And apart from that, USCIS has also set 9 other criteria which you can use to show your extraordinary ability. Now, EB1 has 3 main subtypes, EB1-A, EB1-B, and EB1-C. So I qualified for EB1-B. There's a friend of mine who's in the same field, master's profile, qualified for EB1-A, and then I think Aditi also qualified in EB1-B. So in EB1-A, the difference between EB1-A and EB1-B is, in EB1-A, you can self-petition. So you do not need any employer to petition for you. You can self-petition for that green card. In EB1-B, you need an employer to file the green card for you. In EB1-C, again, you need an employer to file for you. And the main difference across the 3 is that for EB1-A, you need 3 out of 10, which the criteria we will discuss in the coming slides. And you need 3 out of 10, or you can have one-time achievement award. That could be, let's say, a Pulitzer Prize or a Nobel Prize and stuff. And you'll also have to show that you'll continue to work in the same area of expertise. For EB1-B, we need 2 out of 6. And the employer should also demonstrate that they have, let's say, documented accomplishments, awards, or some kind of accomplishments like that, and also should have employed at least 3 full-time researchers in the country. For EB1-C, employer should be headquartered in the United States, and the petitioner should have an executive or managerial position and should have worked abroad for the same employer in the managerial or an executive capacity for at least a year. So an example could be, let's say, you can take a company ABC, which is headquartered here, and let's say it has also a subdomain in India. So you were working in India for, let's say, a manager position for a year, then they bring you here on L1 visa, and then they can file your EB1-C. Okay, so let's see what are the criteria that are required for EB1 green card. So I've also put a link to the video that I have made explaining all the criteria in detail. And here I have just listed the ones in very simple words so that you can understand what we are going to talk about. So the first is national and international awards, like Nobel Prize, Pulitzer Prize, or any kind of national medal that you have got. The second is research papers. Third is citations that you acquire for those research papers. The fourth could be media exposure. For example, let's say if someone has written a blog about you, or there's a news article about your work or about yourself. Sometimes you can also gather altmetric and Plumex information for the articles that you have published. So these 2 forums, like our altmetric and Plumex, they track the demographics where your paper has been cited, where your paper has been read, how many times it has been accessed, other things like how many times it has been downloaded or cited, and a lot of different statistics across demographics. Then membership in professional societies. Now, this has become a very difficult criteria to prove recently. And the reason is that USCIS is saying that, well, it's not difficult to get a membership, but what you do after your membership is more important. So it's difficult to prove, but yet people can use it as a criteria. Then comes peer review. So peer review, let's say you judge the work of others, either in a research capacity, or a lot of people miss this. So let's say you're in a software field and you are in a position where you can review the work of others. Let's say you have a team and the team submits a code. You go to GitHub, you review their code, and then you put it to production. That is still is peer review. It's just that you have to prove it that you have the capacity and experience to judge the work of others. Now, the seventh is books or book chapters. Eighth is editorial membership, conference papers, presentations. And ninth is commercial success in performing arts. So let's say you know Kathak and you have some commercial success gained by performing that art. So you can use that as a criteria. Now, 10th is critical role or high salary. Critical role still is a very important criteria, but proving high salary is tough because let's say you have put out the specifics about, let's say, Glassdoor or any other website which shows that you are having a way higher salary when compared to your peers, but USCIS can still reject that criteria, saying that, well, it's because you're in Bay Area, or it's because you're in Boston, or it's because in New York. How about the other parts of the country? So it can be a difficult one to prove. Now, the process of EB1 Green Card is pretty straightforward. So you first prepare an I-140 petition, and that petition tries to prove to USCIS that you can qualify for EB1 Green Card. Then once you file the petition with USCIS, you can file it either with premium processing or without. I always suggest to file with premium processing, and I think there's a myth going on that if you file in premium processing, you will get a RFE, which I am not sure how people got up with that thing. I filed in premium processing. I think a lot of my friends filed in premium processing, and they all got approved within 15 calendar days. If there is an RFE, that would be something around the criteria that you are trying to approach, and USCIS thinks that more evidence is needed. Without premium processing, it will take around 6 months on an average for a petition to be approved. Once you have an I-140 petition approved, then you can file the form I-485, which is adjustment of status. And along with this form, you should also file I-765, which is employment authorization, I-131, which is advance parole. And the processing of these takes around somewhere between 3 to 7 months. And the fourth one is, once you file these forms, there are a couple of steps. The first is biometrics. So USCIS collects your biometrics, give it to FBI to run a background check. Once you clear that, you go to either interview or no interview, and finally approval or denial. Now, one question that comes to our mind is why we want to try EB1 Green Card. So there are 3 reasons for it. The first is mostly or most of the times it remains current for all countries, except in January visa bulletin, EB1 got retrogressed for both India and China by 10 months. But I would think that probably in coming year or so, it should get back on track. And it's the fastest way to get green card if you're from India and China, because EB2 and EB3 is very retrogressed in both the countries. Now, building an EB1 profile takes time and effort, but in return, you'll not only get a green card, but you can also build an amazing professional profile, which you can use to change jobs or make things better in your life. Now, there's a video that I have made on busting EB1 green card myths. If you have not visited the channel, I would request you to visit and subscribe only if you like the content. So I will not force you to subscribe or like it, but if you like it or if you think the information is correct, please consider subscribing. And the 7 myths that I have debunked is, the first one is PhD is not a requirement. A lot of times, and I think even I was believing in that for a lot time in my career, I was thinking that without PhD, I cannot go for EB1. That's a myth. You can apply for EB1 with an advanced degree, and master's is an advanced degree. Thousands of papers, citations are needed. No, that's not true. You should not believe me. I have done an interview with Shantanu Joshi. He was also a master's candidate, and he got his EB1A approved with only 4 papers and 20 citations. So there is no magic number that USCIS has set anywhere. I have gone through the whole website. I couldn't see anything which says that, well, you should have 50 papers or 200 citations or 600 citations. There's no bar like that. I think it's an overall profile that accumulates everything together and then projects that you are eligible for a particular category. Also, qualifying for O1 visa does not mean that you can qualify for EB1, because though there they have similarities, but still EB1 is more tough to get to. Qualifying for criteria is not enough. There are two stages of process. One is quantitative and then qualitative. In the quantitative phase, USCIS makes sure that you have met the criteria, number of criteria that they are requesting. And this, in the qualitative phase, they want to make sure that you are in the top 10% of the in the field, and you should be awarded this green card. For EB1A, you can file EB1A from anywhere in the world. So if you can qualify for the three criteria and you can show that you have an extraordinary ability, you can file it from anywhere in the world. You do not have to be in the country. RFEs are a good sign and are not always bad. So if RFE comes, you can also think in a positive way that USCIS is actively looking at your case. And that means they think that you can still qualify. There is some questions that they have, and if you can answer those questions, you can be approved. If RFE is not there and you get direct rejection, that's worse, because you don't even know what was the reason or what was the question that they had. Now, finally, the specific part I wanted to talk about is how I qualified for EB1 Green Card. So last December 2022, I completed 10 years in the country. So I came in 2012 December. I came on F1 visa, and I came to Indiana University to pursue my master's in bioinformatics. And I think one thing that happened kind of well, or kind of helped me getting to this green card, is in my master's, when I was working with my professor, he said that why don't you do some research in your thesis, like publish some papers and stuff. So I think during my master's, I published 2 first author papers, and I also got a chance to work for Eli Lilly as an intern. And I think some of you might have known, or might have come across Eli Lilly. It's a pharmaceutical giant which is situated in Indianapolis. So that 6-month internship, along with 2 papers, really helped streamline my research career. And after I completed my master's, the question was, should I go for an industry job or should I go for a nonprofit research job? And I had offers from both the industry and the nonprofit. And someone at that time told me that H1B, getting an H1B from a nonprofit institution with master's degree is way easier when compared to industry, because you don't have to go through this lottery system in nonprofit. You can directly get approved before the H1B. So I was like, okay, well, why don't we go for that? Even though the salary is a little less, but it will be a more peaceful situation in terms of immigration and staying in the country. So I said, well, okay, let's go for that. So I started my full-time job for Cincinnati Children's in 2015. And I was there for almost 7.5 years. I recently changed my job last year, and I'm moving to Boston this week, and now I'm working for Relay Therapeutics as a scientist. So during the course of my work at Cincinnati Children's, the idea was that I was situated in a department where the whole idea was to work with individual principal investigators and help them solve research problems from bioinformatics perspective. Or solution points. So what happened is, over the course of 7.5 years, I published more than 20 papers and accumulated more than 600 plus or so citations. So when I was in my fourth year of H1B, that's 2019, year 2019, I reached out to my manager and said, well, for me to continue working in the country and for Cincinnati Children's, I need an approved I-140. So can you help me get that? So he said, oh yeah, let's talk to the HR and let's see what we can do. As you know, none of the HRs in this world will first come out and say that, well, let's go for EB1. No one will say that. If all of them will push you to go for EB2 and EB3 because they're easy to get approved for. So the same happened with me. They said, yeah, we can file your EB2. That's not a problem. We'll do it like this year and you should be good. And then at that time, I thought, like, why don't I start researching about more categories and see what else is there that I can do, maybe a self-petition that I can do. And then I came across this green card category, which is called EB2 and NIW. Now, you might have heard about EB1, EB2, EB3, or this NIW. What is this category? So this is termed as National Interest Waiver. And when I was researching about it, I found that you can file it, you can do a self-petition for that. So you are not dependent on any employer or organization, and that way Once you have this I-140 approved, you can change jobs on H-1B as you would have done without any I-140 petition, and it will help you progress the career. Though it still uses the same EB2 line, but it's something that allows you to petition from India, from anywhere in the world, and within the country without any employer request or requirement. So I researched about the attorneys, and there are tons of attorneys out there. Do your research. A lot of them offer free evaluation, so go for that. So I submitted my CV to a couple of them, and most of them came back with the same answer, saying that you should go for EB2 and NIW. I said, okay, well, let's do NIW because that way I'm not dependent on the employer. So I went through, I got it. So I filed in October 2019. And the attorney said that we can file it in Express. So Express means that they require minimal documentation to prove that you are in the national interest waiver category. And I submitted the I-140, and I think at that time premium processing was not eligible for EB2 and NIW, so it took around 6 months or 5 months. And I think my I-140 got approved in April of 2020, peak COVID scenario. So when it got approved, I was like, well, let's think what I want to do next. And I was researching about EB1. I started researching about EB1, like what are the criteria, how you can qualify and all that. And automatically, I think probably in January 2021, the attorneys that I worked with, Alice Porter, you can search them on internet, they came back and said, well, we were following your Google Scholar, and we see that you have gained a lot of papers, you have gained a lot of citations. Why don't you try for EB1? So I told them, well, I was also researching about the same thing, and let me talk to my employer first, and let's see if they are now thinking, now can they go for EB1 for myself in EB2, because I already have that approved. So I went back to my manager. This time I created a roadmap on the whiteboard. I told him with EB2 and NIW, it will take me 10 years or probably more to get a green card. So there's another route, which is EB1, where I have to show that I have extraordinary ability, and Cincinnati Children's profile will also be included in that. And can you help me with that? So he said, oh, yeah. He was a science guy. He doesn't care what's going on the immigration side. He was like, yeah, let's do it. No problem. We'll fund it. So we went to the HR again. The HR said, okay, well, if the division is okay paying, we can go for it. And we started the process in April 2021. So the first part of this I-140 petition is that you have to write a career summary, you have to write a research summary, and you have to make sure that you have elaborated on all the points that you think are evidence in your petition. So for example, how many papers you have published, talk about few papers, talk about citations, for example, talk about the people who have cited your work, talk about your journey, like how you got these papers, what were some of the projects you are very happy about or passionate about and stuff. So I wrote all of that. I gave it to the attorneys, and then they started working on it. And then I also got recommendation letters. So recommendation letters or reference letters are very important, and they're kind of icing on the cake. And the reason is they should come from people who do not know you personally and have not worked with you personally. So these could be people, let's say, who have cited your work. In software industry or in IT industry, these could be people who have, let's say you have developed a product, and there are clients who are using this product. They can write testimonials. They can write a letter of support saying that, well, yes, this product is amazing and it saves our life or saves our time and something like that. Or you can get a letter from VP or let's say CEO of the company saying that, well, this person on the team was really efficient in getting this product out. Now, I was talking about people who should not know you, but in this case, CEO doesn't know you personally. He's the CEO. He will not even interact with you on a regular basis. So that letter can count for the reference letter. But in terms of research, yeah, getting letters from people who have cited you and have not worked with you personally are really, really very important. So I got 4 letters. And there's another thing another myth that people think that getting 10 letters would help the case. No, it's not like that. It's qualitative than quantitative. So if your letters have more quality, it will help your case. If your letters have more quantity and not quality, it will just not help with anything. So that is another important aspect of it. So we submitted the application in November 2021, and I got approved on the 13th day. And then we filed our 485 in February 2022, and I got my green card in 65 days, which was the fastest. When the I-485 was submitted, I was like, well, now it would take its own sweet time of 6-7 months. Well, I have H1B. We'll continue and see what happens, but with luck, or I'm not sure what happened, but it got approved in 65 days. So that was really, really nice, and that was kind of my journey. Now, I know there are some points or aspects that you must be wondering, like, what exactly happened? What exactly was my profile at the time of filing? So at the time of filing, I had 20 or so publications, 600 citations, 5 peer reviews. And in terms of peer review, if you're coming from research side, take a letter from editor stating why they chose you for the peer review and what papers you have reviewed, and a little bit about the paper. The reason is sometimes thank you emails work, but if you have these kind of letters, which are difficult to get because editors are really busy, they might not have time to write one, but if you push them, not push them over the cliff, but push them to get the letter in written, that would be really helpful, because USCIS can clearly see that you have some experience and skill set which they think is very important for you to be eligible to review that paper. So this was kind of my profile when I filed, and I also used some altmetric and Plumx things where it showed that my paper had 20,000 plus downloads, was read across whole world probably, and there were a lot of citations and different demographics associated to it. So these are important metrics as well to get. Now, I saw there was an overwhelming response. There were 200 plus questions, and I couldn't get through all of that, but I tried to narrow down to 10 or so questions which I could answer, and also help you elaborate a little bit more on how to get to the EB1. So the very first question, and I think it's a very interesting question as well, that says that there's a lot of competition in US in life sciences research field. And even if I do masters in the US in life sciences, what is the probability that USCIS will accept my petition, given that people already pursuing research in a similar area? Now, I am coming from a stem cell biology field. So I think there are more than 10,000 people doing research in stem cell. And I think this is just an assumption. I think there would be more than that. It doesn't matter how many people are doing the same thing. What matters is how many of them are applying for the green card. Most of the people who are pursuing this kind of research are already American citizens, because they are professors who are doing this research. But very few of them are in the position where they want to file for green card using that kind of research. And also, each field, for example, stem cell, there are tons of questions people are going after. If you, let's say, get a degree in bioinformatics, it doesn't mean that you will be particularly using certain skill set. You might be expanding your skill set. You might be doing new things to learn new technology. So all of that matters. So it's not a hindering that if you've done a master's in, let's say, a field which is very commonly studied, you'll not get your green card. That's not the case. It's more about how you can help US progress in the technology, progress in the science, and what questions you are working, which are very important for people in general. So that is what matters. Okay, the next question is, I didn't do a master's degree with thesis. I don't have any paper either. How can I get started? Okay, recently I made a video where I talked about how people with no research profile or academic profile can start EB1. So make a list of criteria which you think you can qualify right now and what evidence you have. Then make a list of criteria which you think you can qualify, but you'll have to work for, and let's say you'll have to put some time for the next year or so. And then make a list of criteria where you cannot qualify for any of the criteria that you were going through. So let's say there were 2 criteria that you think you can qualify, and then there are 8 criteria that you cannot qualify. Start working on those criteria. Once you start working on those, and that could be, let's say, you can go back to your master's professor and ask him that, well, or her, that I have gained a lot of experience and skill set, and I can help you pro bono do this research if you can put my name in the paper. Now, some of them might say yes, some might say no, but at least you should try. The second thing is, you can think of any patents that have been filed if you were part of the team. Then you can think of things like going to publishers, reaching out to publishers and saying that, well, I want to write a book chapter, I want to write this book. And there are people who will help you. Uh, LinkedIn is a very important tool. Start writing a post on LinkedIn. Tell people this is your skill set. This is what you want to do. I'm sure like 100 people will see this. One will reply, but that one reply is very important. So keep posting. Keep showing what you have. And so you will start showing. Then only people will recognize how they can help you. So there are different ways. And if whoever asked this question, reach out to me. We can discuss this in more detail. Now, how to build a strong profile for NIW without PhD program? Can we apply it without lawyer? Yes, I think all the categories except EB2 and EB3 you can apply without the lawyer. Because for EB2 and EB3 you require the labor certification, which is a process itself. But for rest you can apply on your own. Without PhD program, so there are 6 or 7 criteria that are like, for example, you have to show that you have 10 years of research experience. You have to show you have a high salary. And I think there are some criteria which I can probably make a video on or discuss with Aditi to have another session on. But yeah, you can. But without the PhD program, you can. But if you should have masters or some full-time experience to showcase some of those criteria. Now, the fourth is applying for NIW as an Indian worth it since it has a long wait time. How did you find appropriate references for the recommendation letter? How do you go about increasing media exposure? Okay, that's a great question. So yes, applying for NIW from India doesn't make sense in the terms of the timeline, but it gets you an approved I-140, which is not dependent on any employer. So that will help you change jobs, progress your career, and probably progress towards EB1, right? Without depending on any employer or I-140, like employer-based I-140. And I think I already talked about finding appropriate references, because you can go to your citations, see who are citing your work, take out their profile, see how their work is similar to your work and how they have used your work to do something different. So start taking out their emails, lab IDs, or people's, like, whatever information you get about them. Start contacting them and see if they will be happy to write a letter for you for your immigration petition. And feel free to tell them that you're working on your EB1 or EB2 NIW case and you need these letters. And then the next is about media exposure. So for media exposure, what happens is sometimes you have done some work which is already getting a lot of attention, but you're not aware of it. So search each of your papers, search each of your your work online and see what has been written about it. You will for sure find some media attention or exposure to that. Now, earlier USCIS was very strict, saying that the letters or any exposure should be all about you. But I think recently they have started accepting exposures about the work, about the paper, about any kind of thing that is related to you. So you can think about that in that way. Okay, for PhD students who are in straight PhD program, do not have a separate master's degree, can we apply for EB2 NIW before graduation? Probably not, because it will require an advanced degree. It will require some of these criteria to be met. If you can meet 3 criteria out of 6 without a PhD degree or a master's degree, then probably yes. But I would suggest you to contact an immigration attorney and make sure you meet the criteria. Okay, should I try to get publications outside of my research area, as well as to try maximize the number of papers I can publish in my research area? Well, very interesting question. One thing that I would say, EB1 is all about your expertise in your research area. If you go and start going out of your research area and start publishing, that will just show USCIS that, well, you are not going to focus on that particular field that you are from. So I would say that is a great idea for you to make a professional, let's say, increase your professional profile or width. But if for EB1, I would say focus on your research area and try to publish in that particular area. Do citations really matter for EB1 GC? As I said, it doesn't matter. People with 20 citations have got approved. It's about the criteria, what criteria you're targeting and how strong the evidence is to support that criteria. So go after the criteria, go after the evidence rather than the numbers. Okay, how many recommendation letters are required? Can anyone recommend you? In general, as I said, 4 to 5 are good to have, but as I said, quality is more important than quantity. Anyone, in the sense, like, you cannot just go to a random person and say that write a letter for me. You should ask people who are in the same research field or same field as yours and are working on a very similar domain. Okay, how many publications you require? Is it compulsory to have publications in well-known journals only. Again, no magic number here. Well-known journals, well, the journal should be known in the sense like if you search a certain journal's name on online or on Google, you should find something about it. It should not be a ghost journal for sure. It's not important to have a high impact factor and stuff, but at least that journal should have published some research in the area that you're trying to publish. Okay. The second last question is EB1-B specifically for academic researchers, or does it cover industry research as well? Okay, it does cover industry research. As I said, USCIS does not have a distinction between profit and non-profit here. They say that the employer should have accomplishments and the employer should have three full-time researchers. And it could be either industry or non-profit. So how to get started on this journey? At what point should you evaluate your profile with that journey? As I said, start your journey today. After viewing this video or this presentation, I think I am hopeful that you will be excited and motivated to at least go through the criteria, see what you can qualify for. If there are no criteria you can qualify for, no problem. At least you did your research, you did your part. That is very important. So start your journey today. In terms of when you should evaluate your profile, when you think that you have at least 3 or 4 criteria that you're very strong about, and you think you have a good CV which would support those evidences and support those criteria, go ahead, search for attorneys online. I think a lot of attorneys interact with Aditi's post, my post, talk to them, reach out to them on LinkedIn. And I think there are 2 sets of attorneys as well, conventional and non-conventional. Conventional attorneys will say, well, okay, you don't have research papers, you don't have citations, you'll not qualify. Straight up. Then there are non-conventional attorneys which will try to find those criteria which you think you can have evidence for, and you will have to talk to them to find out. There's no disclaimer, like they will not say on their website that we are conventional lawyers or we are unconventional lawyers or non-conventional ones. You'll have to talk to them. You have to get your profile evaluated. Sometimes that would be free. Sometimes you'll have to pay some money. But I think that expenditure is probably justified because you'll get to know a lot about your case, and also some personalized advice which will help you in your case. So I think with that, I have kind of covered all the questions. Hopefully, it was an interesting session. Now I'm open to